America doesn't have a housing bubble. We have a housing freaking black hole. For context, we are 2 million to 6.8 million homes missing here in the United States. Prices aren't high because of crazy demand. They're high because supply has absolutely collapsed. And I promise by the end of this video, you're going to understand the real reason that housing is broken and the only three things left that can be done to fix it. I want you to understand that the great financial crisis absolutely wrecked the US's housing machine. In 2009, housing starts collapsed to 478,000 units. That was the lowest number since the 1940s. Over 50% of home builders went out of business, especially the smaller ones. Here in the Seattle metro, we had hundreds of builders in our county. By the end of the great financial crisis, we were left about 30. And then guess what happened next? Most of them never returned. They retired, they went and got other jobs, but they didn't come back to new construction and home building. On top of that, our workforce lost over 1 million skilled tradespeople. And of course, Gen Z doesn't want to get into the trades and replace them. We didn't stop just building houses. What really happened was we destroyed our ability to create them at that scale ever again. Where are the millions that are missing? You can simply go to the Federal Reserve's website, and here's a graph of what it looks like. And you can see inside of this giant V is where we didn't build the homes during the great financial crisis. And depending on which resource you're looking at, whether it's Freddie Mac, NAR, Brookings, or Zillow, they all agree that the US is between 3 to 6.8 million homes short today. And this shortage spreads beyond the cities and the suburbs. It spreads even into the small towns and the rural area. So what's the result of that? It means rent is soaring, home ownership is collapsing, and the wealth gap is totally exploding. This isn't just a coastal elite problem. This isn't just a blue state problem. This is now happening right in your backyard, where that American dream is being destroyed and the ability to go acquire that first-time home is starting to seem more and more out of reach. What if I told you that right now there was a 24% tax on every new home being built? And what I'm talking about is regulation. And that regulation is showing up in permitting and zoning, in environmental reviews. And based on recent studies, that's showing it's adding 24.3% to the cost of every new home here in the United States. In places like where I live here in the Seattle metro, these numbers are even worse. So what that does is it adds 6 to 12 months of delays in timelines, sometimes up to 5 years. Once again, here in the Seattle metro, it's going to take you, if you want to do a subdivision, like 2 years. If you want to go get a building permit and build a new home, that's going to take you over a year. So if you had to do a subdivision and build new homes on it, you're looking at a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 5 years just to get it put together through the process, pay for all the permitting, and get it done. Well, because these processes are so long, what's actually happening is these processes are making it unaffordable to build first-time homes, to build starter homes here throughout the United States. And it also takes the same amount of time. So what have builders been doing? They've been focused on creating product above the median price and luxury homes. Why? Well, it's only logical. Builders are not in this business for free. So they're going to focus on the one that's going to create the highest margin, because it takes about the same amount of time to build a small home as it does a big home. This drag is what's making housing unaffordable and uneconomical to build. So the builder then turns around and they go, well, what will make me the money? What makes me the money is building these more expensive ones, because it still takes about the same amount of time and the same amount of effort. So they're building the larger homes and the luxury ones so they can get that margin in a reasonable amount of time. If they can make 120 grand or 250 grand building that median priced home or the luxury home versus the 60 grand in profit they're going to get from the one starter home, obviously they're going to go build the more expensive product because it all takes about the same amount of time. This is why you've seen the size of homes here in the United States explode. The average home is now way over 2,000 square feet. Why? It's all about the numbers. But what are we missing? Starter homes, affordable homes, things that we can get first-time home buyers into. So I need you to understand that this regulation isn't just slowing housing down, it's actually killing affordable housing on paper. And what I mean is the numbers don't work to build them. Then you've got all the politics that happen to show up, the NIMBYs and the YIMBYs. So homeowners, what they're doing is they're fighting to protect their values. They move into an area and they become the NIMBY, the not in my backyard. And then the Chads and the Karens go down to City Hall and they complain about zoning. They complain about upzoning. They complain about the new subdivision going in. And because people are people, they want to appease them. So we put in more and more regulation, which just continues to restrict and constrain supply further. The YIMBY counter movement is, hey, that's a massive push for density. It's about middle housing. It's about high density. It's about mixed use. It's about transit development. Those are the yes in my backyard. The problem with this is not everyone wants to live in a townhome or an apartment. I believe in the American dream. I'd love to see us build more single family homes that we can get our first time home buyers into at an affordable price. Then what's happened is now you have arguments even coming at the state level and attacking cities and counties because nothing is getting done locally. So in states like Washington, Oregon, and Montana, and once again, I live in Washington, they have started passing laws to override the local zoning, to force through density and the allowing of additional housing. And this is showing signs and gaining early momentum. An example of that in Washington state is House Bill 111 and House Bill 1337, aka middle housing, and the ADU bill, where it took all single family lots and turned them into duplex lots or fourplex lots. And it said that every home has to allow up to 2 accessory dwelling units in their backyard. Well, what have the cities and counties been doing? They've been doing everything possible to fight back against this, but because it's state law, they're having to allow it through. So Washington state is going to get a little boom in this additional product. The problem is it's not going to be enough to fill the gap to fundamentally change pricing, help affordability, and help enough first-time home buyers. So I need you to understand is that your neighbor's fear of traffic and them trying to protect their home value is preventing it from where you can't buy your first home or your kids won't be able to buy theirs. We've got to stop this NIMBYism and the over controlling of land through zoning. We kind of already mentioned this, but please understand this is really the death of the American dream. Home ownership has dropped to 65% in 2005. This is the lowest level since 2019. That means we're getting more renters. And understand that first time home buyers now have an average age of 35 and a record low percentage of the sales. They represented 26% of the sales and they rose from approximately 29 to 35. That's a 6-year difference. If we keep forcing the younger generation to wait for everything, they don't get the same opportunity to build wealth. And understand that a homeowner's net worth is 40 freaking X. That's 40 times what a renter's net worth is. This is a massive wealth gap determiner. So if you rent today, the system is designed to keep you renting forever. So what are our ways forward? Well, you can have states like Washington state that have started preempting at the state level and passing laws that are preempting zoning and forcing the cities and the counties to allow more homes to be built. This second one I really hope happens as we go through massive regulatory reform. This is about cutting cost and cutting delays. As someone who's been involved in land development and new construction for over 20 years here in the Seattle Metro, here's what I can tell you. This is the raw facts, the raw truth. In that time period, the amount of code that you have to comply with has literally doubled, if not quadrupled. 2, timelines have doubled and tripled. 3, the fees have more than doubled or tripled. But what does that mean? All of that is passed on to the consumer because the builder and the developer are still going to make their margin. So what's happened in Washington state? Washington state over the last 40 years has had the highest rise in housing costs because of all this overregulation. And it's happening in your state and your backyard too. Third, I hope we start to get some type of a federal level push. And what I'm talking about is training for workers inside of the trades, incentive for workers inside of the trades, making trades cool again. Why did we pull wood shop out? Why did we pull things like that out of school and feed everyone this horrible lie that you got to get $100,000 in debt and get a college education? Yes, that is great for some, but it's not great for everyone. Make the trades cool again. We need affordable housing. And so we need funding for affordable housing. That's Fannie Mae, that's Freddie Mac, that's at the state level. We need taxes that help affordable housing. You have to incentivize builders and developers to create affordable housing, or they won't, because the margins are gone today because of all the freaking zoning problems. And we've got to tie all of these types of aid to pro-housing policies, to pro-growth policies that support housing and the creation of housing specifically for first-time homebuyers. Let's figure out ways to decrease this wealth gap and help the first-time homebuyer get into their first home. It may not be the home of your dreams, and that's okay, but let's get them into the property ladder so they can start building wealth, so we can start decreasing this wealth gap, helping the middle class. We've got to make major changes inside of this country. So I want to recap this real quick. I need you to understand that this is not a crisis. What this is this is a massive shortage in supply. This is not a bubble. So when you see those guys on Twitter or on Instagram pontificating about how we're going to go through a major housing crash and about how we're going to go through a major price crash because things are unaffordable, you need to remind them that supply is winning because the demand is still there, and send them back to Econ 101. And these stakes are unbelievably high because without action, what we're doing is we're permanently dooming our society to a two-tiered society, to the owner class and the rental class. And in order to get into the owner class, you're either going to have a leg up, or you're going to have to save longer and longer and longer. But regardless, that wealth gap will not decrease until we allow more homeownership to happen. So if you've enjoyed this breakdown, hit that magic subscribe button. If you want to build wealth or understand real estate or land development or money in business, these are the things that we talk about all the time on this channel. We'd love to help you in the housing game, and drop all of your questions and comments below.